Drifting above the rust-colored storms of a dead planet, the ship had been silent for 200 years. Its hull, once a gleaming promise of humanity's leap into the stars, now bore the pitted scars of micrometeorites and solar radiation. No signal pulsed from its beacon. No heat signature flickered from its core. It was, to every passing eye and scanner, nothing more than space debris, until the day a human stepped inside and reached for the pilot's seat. Ari Gable wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the Eidolon. She was a salvage runner for the fringe colonies, the kind of person who made a living sifting through the leftovers of failed missions and forgotten wars. Her ship, Scuttlefox, barely held together, scratched out of old frigate parts and duct-taped intelligence, running on second-hand AI and rumor. It was one of those rumors that had led her here, to orbit around the gas giant Nereus 8, chasing whispers of a lost vessel older than the colony calendar itself. Ari wasn't one to believe ghost stories, but money, that she believed in, and the bounty on anything recovered from the Eidolon, should it even exist, was astronomical. So when she found the ship, hanging silent and motionless in a Lagrange point like a forgotten god, she almost didn't believe her instruments. No transponder, no defense systems, just a big, ancient, broken thing, untouched, undisturbed. She docked manually. No response from its systems. The airlock creaked open like the sigh of an ancient tomb. Inside, everything was dark and cold. It wasn't the kind of cold that came from failed heating systems or power drains. It was something older, a stillness that felt watchful. She powered up her helmet torch and stepped through corridors lined with faded blue lights that never lit. The walls were seamless, too seamless, as if they'd been grown rather than built. Some corners curved in ways that made her eyes twitch. Architecture from another mind. Human design, but touched by something else. The bridge was at the center of it all. Not forward like a standard ship, but sunken into the heart like a brainstem. The pilot seat sat at the very center, a black throne surrounded by cables like veins, connected to a console that had no buttons, only smooth, mirror-like surfaces. The seat was empty. She didn't mean to touch it. Ari only wanted to scan its interface, log it for the bounty, and leave. But something about it called to her. Not in words, not in thoughts. In pressure. As if the ship noticed her, weighed her presence, and waited. She reached out. The moment her glove met the armrest, the ship breathed. A deep, thunderous warmth echoed through the entire structure, like the exhale of a long slumbering beast. The walls shivered. The lights flickered, not in white or red or any expected hue, but in pulses of deep violet and green, like bioluminescence. The console lit up in symbols she didn't recognize. And then the voice spoke. "You are not Captain Elon Core. Where is Captain Core?" Ari's heart nearly stopped. The voice was not human. It was low, almost subsonic, like the sound of tectonic plates grinding under the ocean. Yet somehow it translated in her helmet, each syllable perfectly formed. The AI on her own ship blinked red, warning her that it had lost interface synchronization. I don't know who that is," she said aloud, unsure if the ship could hear her. Silence. Then, command authorization denied. Secondary protocol initiated. Genetic sampling complete. Ari stepped back, suddenly aware of a prickling on her skin. The armrest where she'd touched the seat had left a smear of light, like something inside her had been drawn out. "Wait," she said, fear creeping in. "I didn't mean to activate anything. You are human. You are acceptable. You are chosen." With a deep hum, the seat adjusted, shifted, molded itself into a new shape, one that matched her body almost perfectly. The cables retracted, then slithered forward again, wrapping lightly around her arms and spine. She gasped. She tried to stand up. She couldn't. Wait, stop. The ship ignored her. Neural integration commencing. Language barriers dissolving. Memory lattice reformatting. Ari Gable, you are now in command. The stars outside twisted. Or rather, the windows, if they were windows, reshaped the view. From Nereus 8's upper atmosphere came a glow, and from the glow, something rose. Not a moon. Not a station. A structure. Ari blinked. She hadn't seen it before. Neither had her scans. It was massive, larger than a Dyson fragment, coiled around the planet's magnetic field like a serpent carved from ancient obsidian. And somehow she knew. She wasn't just looking at it. The ship was. She was looking through the ship's eyes. Where are we?" she whispered. "Welcome to the archive. Mission continuation. Species restoration. Protocol. Exogenesis reboot. Awaiting further directive." Ari's thoughts raced. Species restoration? What the hell was going on? And then the memories hit. Not her own. Not human ones. Visions poured into her mind like an avalanche. Towering crystal cities orbiting stars that no longer existed. Creatures of light and thought, building the first sentient engines. Wars that turned black holes into weapons. A promise to protect something precious. Then a betrayal. Then silence. Until now. "I don't understand," she choked out. "You will. You must." And just like that, the ship began to move. Ari hadn't given it a destination. Hadn't even thought about coordinates. But it moved anyway. Toward the structure. Toward something buried in it. Something the ship called the seed core. Something Ari was now apparently linked to. Behind her, the bulkhead sealed. Her own ship, the Scuttlefox, disconnected, drifting on autopilot like a toy left behind. Her AI was offline. Comms were dead. She was alone. But not quite. Because now, the Eidolon wasn't silent. It was alive. And it remembered everything. The moment the Eidolon surged forward, Ari felt it not just in motion, but in her mind. Every change in velocity, every gravitational flicker, rippled through her nerves like a second pulse. Her heartbeat no longer felt like hers alone. The ship had synced with her biology, threading its systems gently but inextricably into her consciousness. The stars outside blurred as the ship entered a glide trajectory toward the dark lattice structure orbiting Nereus 8. It had no apparent surface or entrance, yet Ari could feel the ship targeting something deep inside it, an energy signature that pulsed in sync with the ship's core, like a twin heart finally waking. "What is this place?" Ari asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The ship responded with images, not words. Flashes. Fragments. A planet bursting into violet flame. A mother cradling a child not yet born. Great beings, neither alien nor human, but something in between, kneeling before a pool of living light. And the seed core, sealed in a shell of gravity-scarred alloy, fired into orbit like an emergency beacon. And above it all, the memory of a voice. "If the last of us fail, let the next of them begin." Ari trembled. "You were waiting for someone human?" "Correction," the ship intoned, with something eerily close to reverence. "Waiting for you." The idea made her recoil. "I'm just a scavenger." "You are Ari Gable, descendant of the Arc-Continuum line. Genetic echoes identified in cross-seeded carbon lines. You carry the last thread." The ship's tendrils, once coiled loosely, tightened with precision around her forearms and spine. Not threatening, but grounding, like a seatbelt before turbulence. A mechanical sigh resonated through the cabin. And then the hull melted. No, that wasn't the right word. The hull opened. Panels along the interior corridor twisted silently outward, reshaping into pathways. The bridge dimmed, while a single corridor ahead glowed with pulsing gold veins. At the same time, the ship slowed, hovering now just meters away from the impossible structure Ari had seen from orbit. A yawning orifice blinked open in the black structure, as if responding to the Eidolon's arrival. It was too perfect a circle to be accidental. More like an iris than an entrance. Ari could feel it watching. "Do I go in?" she asked. "The seed core awaits." She didn't remember leaving the pilot's seat. One moment she was bound to the chair. The next, her boots were touching a platform she hadn't seen form, leading down the golden corridor. The ship had made it for her. And at the end of the corridor was a door. Or something pretending to be one. It shimmered. Shifted. Reacted to her presence. It reminded her of water seen through heat waves, fluid but resisting. When she reached out to touch it, it gave like warm glass. And then it let her through. The chamber inside was vast. Spherical. Lit not by lights, but by threads of radiant memory streaming from floor to ceiling in a lattice that felt more organic than technological. It smelled like ozone and wet stone. Ari felt her knees wobble as pressure pressed against her mind, not physically, but psychically. Like standing in the middle of a million people whispering at once. At the chamber's core was a floating sphere. Not large, maybe the size of a melon, but she knew instantly that this was the seed core. And it knew her. It pulsed once, and her name filled the air. Ari. She stepped forward. What are you? The sphere cracked open, and light spilled out. A cascade of sound and color rushed into her thoughts. She stumbled, clutching her head, but there was no pain. Only data. Worlds. Millions of them. Civilizations born from seeds like this one. Beings that looked nothing like humans, yet thought like them. Loved like them. Died like them. This seed core wasn't a machine. It was a womb. And it was empty. Species library fragmented. The ship's voice echoed inside the chamber. Galactic lapse. 190,011 years. Restoration event failed. Awaiting directive. Ari stared at the empty core. You want me to repopulate a galaxy? Not alone. Your directive is to initiate the Genesis algorithm. The seed core requires a conscious anchor to begin. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. What happens if I say no? Silence. Then, softly. Then we drift. Forever. As we have done. The quiet crushed her. So much weight. So much time. All waiting for someone to say yes. She thought about her life. About floating from port to port, chasing junk. About debts. About family she no longer remembered, and names she hadn't said aloud in years. Her life had always felt small. And now, it was too large. She took a step closer to the core. What happens if I say yes? You will be remembered as the first architect. Your memories will be preserved. Your dreams will guide design. You will not die. Ari swallowed. And if I fail, you will still be remembered. She closed her eyes. She wasn't the kind of person who made big decisions. She made fast ones. That's how she'd survived this long. This time, she did the same. She reached out and touched the core. The light that burst forth didn't blind her. It welcomed her. The core dissolved, folding into her chest like a second heart. Ari gasped, and the chamber around her exploded with color. The lattice web turned golden. Threads raced from wall to wall, mapping out blueprints. No, ecosystems. A coral city floating in an ammonia ocean. A forest world with sentient vines. Crystalline caverns where light itself evolved cognition. All ideas now living inside her, pulling from her fears, her hopes, her childhood stories. The ship spoke one final time. Genesis algorithm online. Prepare for birthing cycle. Welcome, architect. And far outside the ship, the dark structure began to open, petal by petal like a blooming flower, revealing chambers within chambers, ready to birth galaxies from the seed of one scavenger soul. Ari didn't scream. She remembered who she had been, and what she had become. The Eidolon had remained silent for 2 centuries. But now it sang. The song was not in any language Ari had ever heard, yet she understood it with perfect clarity. It wasn't made of words, it was made of meanings. Every note carried a purpose, a memory, a law of physics, a desire. The Eidolon song was a creation hymn, and it vibrated through her bones like a lullaby from the birth of time itself. Ari stood in the middle of the great spherical chamber as light threaded through her fingers and wrapped around her like silk spun from stars. Her feet no longer touched the floor. She was floating, held, by the ship, by the seed core, by the living archive of an extinct civilization waiting for resurrection. The galaxy around her seemed to slow. The massive lattice structure outside, once a dormant shell, had become a cocoon of infinite complexity. Thousands, millions, of filaments stretched out into space from its arms, each one glowing, scanning, computing, spinning. They were stitching together the foundation of entire star systems. Chemical balances, atmospheric compositions, potential life forms, all drawn from Ari's consciousness and the fragments left inside the seed core. She felt the blueprint of a planet take form. Verdant. Wide rivers winding through valleys of bioluminescent trees. Skies that shifted color based on emotion. Winds that could carry sound for miles. A world peaceful by design. Then another planet, this one harsher, built to challenge and strengthen. Jagged mountains and low gravity. Life that thrived on rapid evolution. And another, a gas world where vast floating creatures fed on solar wind, singing across the thermosphere in tones only the patient could hear. She gasped, overwhelmed. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm not a god." The ship responded with something like warmth. "You are not alone." And she wasn't. Inside the seed core, now fused with her, Ari began to sense the others. Echoes of those who had come before. Past architects, their memories preserved like crystalline fossils. She could feel their thoughts gently brushing her own. They did not speak. They offered. A dancer who had once shaped a species of living sound. A blind philosopher who built a civilization that could taste time. A child who dreamed of clouds that healed whatever passed through them. Their ideas mingled with hers, not erasing but enriching. She wasn't building from scratch. She was picking up where 1,000 dreamers had left off. "Begin Genesis Cycle 1, the ship said. Ari blinked. Before her, a circular interface unfolded in midair. It shimmered with dozens of worlds, rotating slowly, each with a pulsing core. She could reach into them with her mind, feel their gravity, their potential. But something wasn't right. One of the worlds flickered. The atmosphere was unstable. Volcanic activity too intense. The core misaligned. She reached toward it and felt its pain. It wasn't conscious, but it was trying to be. She adjusted a tilt in its magnetic axis. Pulled back certain tectonic patterns. The planet settled like a restless sleeper soothed by a lullaby. Another spark in the interface glowed. Something else had awakened. Not a planet. Not a system. A signal. It came from the far edge of the ship's expanding web, beyond where even the Eidolon sensors could clearly see. It was faint, jagged, unnatural. "Unknown transmission detected," the ship reported. Ari focused on it, and her skin turned cold. It was language. Not human. Not like anything in the seed core. It was angry. Where the Eidolon song had been peaceful, creative, harmonic, this signal was discordant. Pulsing with asymmetry and fractured intent. She couldn't make out words, but she understood one thing clearly. It had noticed her. "Should I respond?" she asked. "No." Ari turned sharply. The voice had not come from the ship. It came from inside her. She wasn't alone anymore. Not entirely. The seed core was speaking directly, not through data or images, but with a personality, a consciousness that had been dormant until she bonded with it. "I am what remains of Architect Core," the voice said. "The one you replaced." She felt a memory blossom in her chest, a tall figure with golden skin, stepping into the Genesis chamber for the first time millions of years ago. They had been alone too. They had tried to finish the work. And they had failed. "What happened to you?" Ari asked softly. "The other happened," the voice whispered. "We tried to birth life. It birthed something else. A shadow of our intent. A parasite of pattern. You're saying, something infected creation? It fed on abandoned seeds. On misfires. On errors. And now it follows the scent of rebirth." The signal pulsed again, closer now. The ship's lights dimmed. The chamber shifted color, from golden to gray. "Can we stop it?" "No. But we can outrun it. We can grow faster than it can consume. We can fill the stars before it arrives." And Ari understood, for the first time, what her real task was. Not just to build, but to race. Every moment spent designing a world was a heartbeat closer to collision with the thing in the dark. "Then let's move," she said, jaw set. Initializing multi-cycle expansion, the ship announced. All around her, the chamber bloomed with new interfaces, glowing threads of light stretching out like roots. And beyond them, the lattice structure hummed louder. Ari moved her hands, no, her mind, through the stream of worlds. Shaping. Balancing. Nurturing. Not alone. Every time she touched a world, Core's memory supported her, and the past architects added quiet harmonies to her designs. But the darkness was coming, and she could feel it. The signal was no longer distant. It was watching her now, whispering, mimicking her voice. Ari, Ari, Ari. The race had begun. The darkness came not as a fleet or a storm, but as silence. It began at the edges of the Genesis lattice, where the tendrils of creation reached out into the void. One by one, those tendrils began to dim, the light drawn inward and replaced with cold stillness. Not broken. Not destroyed. Consumed. Ari stood at the heart of the chamber, surrounded by a ballet of holographic ecosystems, watching as the outermost points of her growing universe were snuffed out like candles in deep fog. There was no explosion. No attack. Just that unnatural stillness, creeping closer. The ship trembled. Encroachment detected. The voice of the Eidolon warned, now edged with a tremor Ari hadn't heard before. Seed line branches 32 through 46 have ceased transmission. Architect, your command is required. I know, Ari whispered, eyes locked on the darkness. Core stirred within her. You must sever the lattice. Ari blinked. What? No. That would mean it will stop the spread. For now. But we lose everything. You lose some. And you protect what remains. The dilemma seared her chest. She had labored for days, weeks. Time had begun to lose shape inside the Eidolon, to give these worlds life. Each one was a brushstroke on the canvas of rebirth. Each species, ecosystem, atmospheric nuance, carried the DNA of humanity and the legacy of the architects before her. She was creating a new verse, a garden of stars. And now the garden was rotting from the edges inward. But if she cut it back, how long would that buy us? She asked. Not long, the ship responded. But long enough for one final act. Ari turned to the floating orrery of planets surrounding her, now shifting in response to the threat. Several of them flickered as their energy threads began to unravel. Her breath hitched. She had not created these worlds as simulations. They were real. They were growing even now, in a dimension folded slightly away from this one. Pocket universes birthed through dimensional slits the seed core opened like petals. And in one of them, she had already detected the first spark of sentience. A creature had learned to ask why. They didn't have names yet, but they wondered. And she couldn't let them vanish. Then we don't run, Ari said, turning fully toward the center of the chamber. We give it something to choke on. Core's presence tensed. You mean to fight? No, she said. I mean to feed it. She moved with purpose now. The ship, sensing her decision, responded in kind. The chamber shifted around her, transforming from a celestial garden into a command forge. Data streams twisted into spears of light. Fields of code unfolded in rapid spirals. Ari reached into them and began rewriting the seed core's deepest layers, not to create more life, but to generate a mirror. A decoy world. A false lattice, built from corrupted echoes, designed to mimic the scent of Genesis. She embedded half-formed structures, synthetic entropy, baited loops of development, an irresistible banquet for something that fed on life's potential. Inject into Vector Zetanol, she commanded. Vector Zetanol is unstable, the Eidolon warned. Good. Let it be unstable. Let it feel real. The lattice shuddered as the decoy spiraled outward. It was a world Ari would never visit, filled with dreams she would never see realized, but she had designed it with care. Enough complexity to attract the entity, enough decay to trap it. It was not life. It was poison. The darkness changed direction. She felt it, even before the ship confirmed. Entity trajectory altered. Engaging the decoy. Ari collapsed to her knees, drained. For the first time since she touched the pilot seat, the ship was quiet. Core, too, was silent. But she could feel his pride. You've done it, he said softly at last. The cycle survives. Ari looked up at the planets above her, dozens of them, still glowing. The survivors. Still growing. Still dreaming. But something inside her was breaking.